Hi, this is Jason Junker. I'm going to take a look at this video called Motivational Interviewing, Good Example, Alan Lyme, and I'm going to offer some commentary and criticism of the video. This is a super popular video on YouTube, having over 500,000 views, and I'll give you my honest opinion of what I think of this in terms of an example of motivational interviewing.
Well, hi, Ms. Clark. My name is Alan Lyme. I'm a social worker at the Family Health Centre. Dr. Seal asked me if I would spend some time with you today. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm just curious as to why he would send you to me.
Well, I came to see Dr. Seal last week because of increasing stress and anxiety that's kind of getting the best of me. And in the course of my appointment with him, he was asking how I was dealing with that stress. And I mentioned that my 1 or 2 glasses of wine a few nights a week is turning into more frequent and maybe 3 or 4 on some nights.
Okay.
And he had some concerns about that and felt like maybe you could help me with stress or something.
Yeah, so he asked you to see me because you went to him for increased stress, and he's concerned that your alcohol consumption may be a part of that increase. And prior to prescribing you anything, he wanted to make sure that you at least had someone to talk to about that.
I suppose.
Okay.
So, great attitude towards the person that's coming to talk to Alan. I think Alan does a great job of avoiding all of those 12 roadblocks to listening. You can see already here there's a bit of a disconnect between why the person has come to see Alan and what Alan's goal may be. And I think you'll see through the course of this video that plays out several times. What are we really here for? What is your understanding of why we're here? And do you consent to be here and talk to me about are we here? Do you consent? Are we on the same page about this? And I think you'll see throughout the video ways in which they're not on the same page, and that's never gets completely clarified.
I saw that you filled in one of the pink sheets. May I take a look at that?
Yeah, he told me to fill that out and bring it with me.
Okay, thank you. So you say here that you have 4 or more drinks in 1 week. You mentioned that you...
So just a technical point here, I would establish ahead of time. So when you wrote your answers, what did you mean when you said a drink? Can you tell me what you considered to be 1 drink? Because as you'll see later in the video, there's some discrepancy. The woman on the couch there believes a drink is 1 quantity. The makers of that scale that they're looking at believe it's a different quantity. And if you establish that ahead of time, then you can revise the answers, and the feedback that you give the person will be more accurate.
You may be increasing that a little bit as well, and that you have 1 or 2 drinks in one setting.
Typically.
Yeah, and that maybe monthly you have more than that. What kind of drinks do you have? What do you drink when you typically drink?
Wine with my meals. Again, 1 or 2 typically, and more frequently 3 or 4 since my stress has increased.
So it's starting to increase. You're starting to drink a little more. Okay. Well, based on what you put here, it gives you 6 points on this scale. The scale ranges from 0 to 40. So 6 points will put you in what we would consider an at-risk zone. So if it's okay with you, let's just talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Okay. So the at-risk zone, say it runs 0 to 40. It's not a super high risk, but it certainly could be a risk for maybe increasing stress, maybe some physical ailments related to alcohol as well. Could start to show up if you were to increase your drinking from there or even stay there. This is a typical standard drink size over here. I'm not sure whether that fits your description of a glass of wine or not.
I filled a glass up, so maybe a little more than that.
Yeah, maybe that little space at the top, so perhaps a drink and a half each one. So that would also increase a little bit more. So perhaps maybe drinking more than you indicated on here. And for a woman, healthy woman your age, no more than 3 drinks in one setting is considered to be lower or no risk, and no more than 7 in 1 week.
7 total in 1 week?
7 total in 1 week. And what you say here is that...
So, again, very good tone, very respectful. not judgmental. My concern again is the order. So let's establish the actual number of drinks. Let's give her actual risk. And then when we say risk, let's define what that means. So when I say you're at this level of risk, risk for what? And that would be a good time to use elicit, provide elicit, and ask this person. So when I say you're at risk, what are some of the things you think that might include? What have you heard alcohol might put you at risk for? Find out what that is, and then use asking. So can I share as well a few things that some information that we have about what is risky about risky drinking? Person says yes. Now you've got permission to share that information. Then the shock might have been even more pronounced at that point, because now I'm shocked that I'm drinking more than what's safe, and I'm shocked at the fact that the different kinds of things that alcohol is not safe for, like, for example, emergency room visits and accidents and certain kinds of cancer and stomach bleeding and all the different risks that are there. I think it would be important to share what those risks are. So I think a little bit of a lost opportunity there to really provide what are the risks when we're talking about risks.
Even on this sheet, you were perhaps already drinking more than that.
Yeah, he seems really interested in this. Like, you may in fact be drinking more. Maybe your drinking is increasing. Like, he's continually saying that to her, I guess, to maybe kind of raise the urgency of her drinking. But again, I think a lot could have been done by establishing the actual number of drinks before providing the feedback, so that the feedback was in the correct range, and then be really clear about what those risks are, and then take that person's surprise. So you're surprised by that. You seem a little bit surprised. That's a great entrance into a conversation about the risks of drinking.
So what do you make of all that?
Um,
Good question, right? So he provided the feedback, and then immediately went to her. What do you think of all that? He didn't come to the conclusion for her and tell her, so that means this for you. That's not what he did. He's asking her, what does that mean to you? That's very skillful, very well done, very MI consistent.
That's news to me. I thought red wine with your meals is supposed to be healthy, and no more than 7 in a week. That seems kind of prohibitive.
Yeah. It seems a little less than perhaps you've been drinking, or what you consider to be healthy drinking. And certainly there's conflicting information out there about what's healthy and what's not healthy. I imagine the increased stress is what concerned Dr. Seal.
That seems like a non sequitur to me. So she's saying that she's really kind of shocked that the drinking that she's doing is above what's considered safe. And then he jumps into, I think what your doctor is concerned about is this. I'm not sure how he knows that. That's outside the scope of a therapist to know about the prescribing, what's safe and what's not safe in terms of prescribing for a doctor. And again, I think here we're a bit afloat on the sea of it's not chaos, but of uncertainty, because I don't know what are we agreeing to talk about here. Are we agreeing to talk about what you need to do to be able to get prescribed something for your anxiety? Are we agreeing to talk about how to reduce how risky your alcohol is and ways to cut down? Are we talking about behavioral ways to cut down on your anxiety that may make the need to use alcohol less? What are we doing here? And so again, I think that could have been more clearly established at the beginning, and perhaps as we look, perhaps a longer period of understanding the pros and cons of drinking in this person's mind might be then a transition into, well, so then what do we want to do here? We've got some different focuses that we could look at here. That could be another way of going at it. But again, I just feel a little bit adrift. It doesn't feel focused enough to me.
As your stress increases, and if he were to prescribe you anything, maybe some interaction between the two that would also be a concern for him, I would think.
How do you know that? You're a therapist, you're a social worker, you don't prescribe. That if the doctor had said that in his referral, then I would say the doctor said blah blah blah. But as a therapist or social worker, talking about what doctors prescribe and don't prescribe is really outside of our scope. And I would really want to hear from the doctor what their concerns were, and produce those concerns verbatim from the referral.
So if you would, what is it that you like about alcohol?
Well, it does, at least in the moment, temporarily reduce my stress. And I, like a good glass of wine. I don't drink the cheap stuff. I like
Right.
the expensive.
Right. So you like the taste of it, and it does help to lower the stress, even if it's just for that time you're drinking. What are the not so good things about alcohol for you?
All right, so that was a perfectly fine question, perfectly fine summary of that, and then he moves on from what do you like about it to what are the not so good things. However, that is actually not recommended by the people who, by Bill Miller and Steve Rolnick and the people who have developed motivational interviewing. That is essentially an abbreviated decisional balance, right? It's an abbreviated decisional balance. They do not recommend that in a case like this. If someone is coming to a professional to talk about their drinking and there's some concerns about those drinkings, we're not neutral. And using a decisional balance should only be used in situations in which we're completely neutral, in which there's no ethical or health reason why I should be interested in seeing you make a change. And there are situations like that. As a therapist, we're not allowed to tell people if they should stay in a marriage or leave a marriage. And so that might be somewhere where we use a decisional balance. Or someone is looking at going to this college or that college. And as a therapist, I don't really know, but I can walk through a decisional balance with you and help you get some clarity on your values and what you think is important. When we're looking at health behaviors, there's an ethical, not a mandate, but I think certainly an ethical, what's the word? There's a reason ethically to promote things that are healthy for the person. It's beneficence. I want to do something good for you. It's compassion. I care about what's good for you, and so I'm going to lean in the favor of making the change. And doing a decisional balance doesn't do that. And the makers of motivational interviewing specifically discuss that in several places, that there's been a confusion that MI and the decisional balance are the same thing and that they're interchangeable. They're not. We actually want to be on the favor of making healthy changes, and the decisional balance doesn't do that.
Well, the nights that maybe I have couple more glasses than I should, I wake up feeling kind of yuck. And of course, part of my stress is finances, and I mentioned I like the good stuff, and so if I'm drinking more, then I'm increasing my financial burden.
Yeah.
So
So your financial stress may be increased by the fact that you're drinking.
yeah.
Good summary, right? He's just kind of saying what she said, but he's making it very clear. So your drinking is increasing your stress, at least the financial stress, right? So I think that's a great summary or reflection of what she just said.
Kind of
Yeah.
defeating the purpose
Kind
there.
of a catch-22 there, drinking to reduce stress and increasing stress at the same time.
So the catch-22 would be like an analogy or a metaphor. You can't win for losing. You're trying to reduce your stress, but it's actually making your stress go up. Maybe a little bit too much. I think maybe we want to hear from her more. So let's make that one reflection, not three, and then go back to hearing about. So you have some financial stresses that this is contributing to. Those would be reasons to change then, and we want to increase the amount of reasons to change, and we just want to turn the volume down a little bit on the reasons why drinking is great and why I should keep drinking.
On the one hand, it lowers it, and on the other hand, it's increasing, kind of like a seesaw.
Okay, so the seesaw, the catch-22, both good analogies. Pick one.
What do you
and
make
then,
of that?
And then
Given
go.
that on one hand
Okay,
it lowers,
good.
on the other hand it increases, and now it's increasing even more.
Good. So he does put it back on her now. So I've given you this analogy. It's a catch-22. It's a teeter-totter. Those are both good analogies. He's put it back on her, and wants to hear more from her. That's a great way to elicit change talk. You said change talk. I gave you an analogy. Now I'm asking you, share a little bit more about that. I'm going to get more change talk that way, which is, I think, something that we want to do. Again, I'm going back to the beginning here. Change about what? Are we trying to lower our drinking so we can get the prescription? Are we trying to lower our stress so we don't have to drink? Are we trying to lower our drinking so that what is the actual goal here? I think would be helpful. And if not done at the beginning, then just kind of exploring all of these reasons to and not drink could be a preface for now. We need to figure out what is it we're talking about. But for me, I'm feeling a bit adrift.
And maybe I need to find some other way to deal with my stress.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the focus right there. So is that what we're doing here? I don't know if I would say it that way, but I might say it sounds like I wouldn't say it sounds like you might be looking for some different ways to manage your stress than drinking. Is that fair? And I'd use a closed-ended question like that to get a yes or no. Okay, so people, then I would say, so sometimes when people are considering a change like that, they have reasons to change and reasons not to change. What are some of your reasons to want to change? And I would heighten that motivation. Now that we've got a focus, I'm going to really heighten the motivation around making that change. Different ways to manage your stress. Now we've got a focus, right?
Yeah. I imagine you've had some thoughts of that. What have you thought of trying?
I would not start asking about ideas to change here because I don't know where her motivation is. And if her motivation is not high and we jump into looking at solutions, she'll either A, go, I can't think of any solutions, or B, I've tried everything and nothing works, or C, she'll think of something and then she'll shoot holes in it because she's not really ready to change. You don't want to start talking about solutions until you know the solutions aren't just going to get shot out of the water because the ambivalence is still super high.
If anything.
Well, I've exercised in the past, and that helps. Right now, my schedule is kind of out of whack, and I just really don't know what to do. That's why I came to see.
See, I used to exercise, but I can't really do that now. My schedule, I just couldn't. It's kind of exactly what I predicted would happen.
Dr. Seal, I thought maybe he could prescribe me something that would help me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed.
So is that what we're doing? You don't want to look at behavioral alternatives for stress reduction, alternatives to drinking. You want to figure out how can you convince the doctor to prescribe you. Is that what we're doing here? I don't know.
And he may be able to. I'm not saying that he cannot. I'm just imagine that he's concerned that if you continue to drink on the level that you are drinking, that whatever he prescribes you, there may be an interaction with it.
That almost sounded defensive. Like he may be able to do that. I don't know. But again, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what the focus is. And again, I don't want to get into what the doctor can or can't do because it's outside my scope.
So, I imagine that's his concern.
I don't know what his concern is.
Sure.
I'm not a doctor.
So you've had some success in the past with changing behaviors, and if you were to decide to make any changes here, it sounds like you could draw upon that to make those changes.
Good affirmation, okay? She did shoot down those changes and say those changes were possible now, but he's using an affirmation. You've made changes in the past. That suggests that you could make changes in the future. Those are good affirmations. If you want open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries, those are good affirmations.
How important would it be for you on a scale of 0 through 10? I have a little kind of visual here of that. If 0 is not important, 10 is very important, to do something about your drinking right now.
So now we're talking about the drinking again. I thought we were talking about stress management. I thought we were trying to get the medication. What is it that we're doing? Where's the focus? Good question. Very consistent use of a ruler or a scaling question. That's very well done. I want to know how important the change is to her, but again, I want to know what change are we talking about, and is she even consented to talking about that change yet?
Well, I mean, if it means that it's increasing my stress or he's not going to prescribe me anything because of my drinking, then it's fairly important, maybe about a 7.
That's pretty up there. Why did you choose a 7, not a 5 or a 4?
Okay, perfect. People forget this, including me, all the time. We ask the first part of the ruler question, what's their number? And then you always ask, why didn't they pick a number less than. And the reason that you do that is because they're almost always going to give you reasons why it's important. Reasons why it's important to make the change is change talk. So that's a perfect, it's like a set point, or I don't know any sports analogies. Somebody throws the ball up and the other one puts it in, a 1-2 punch, something like that. I don't know sports.
Well, again, I've got to get things under control. You know, my kids are dependent on me, and I've got to go to work to help ease this financial stress, and so, you know, all those responsibilities.
So there's a lot riding on your decision here on what to do with this. What, if anything, will bring it up to an 8 or 9 on that scale?
That's a third piece of that question, which can be helpful. No, it's good. It's good. I would also use that once you have something that a person is looking at doing. They've got a plan. I would look at, so you're at an 8 or 9 in terms of confidence that you can, whatever the action step is that we have. Then I might say, what would bring it up to a higher number? What would get us? You said 8. What would get us to a 9, 9.5? And then the person's going to modify the plan to make it even more likely to be successful. But it's fine here too. You don't see it as much in motivational interviewing currently in some of the latest books that I've read and trainings that I've taken. But that is perfectly fine second follow-up question to the ruler question.
Well, the risk that you mentioned about the drug interaction, I certainly can't afford to, have any more stress. So.
Yeah. So you choose to lower your stress rather than increase it, and if lowering your drinking would have that effect, that's something you'd be willing to do right now. How confident are you that you could do something about your drinking?
So that's good. Again, went for importance. Now confidence. I would always repeat the 1 to 10 because people will just give you an answer. Oh, it's really important. I want a number so that I can do the second part of it. So I would again say on a scale of 1 to 10, many times, you'll explicitly ask for the number, and they'll give you a paragraph response. So what you need to do in that case is say, so given that, what number would you pick? You want that number so you can do the second part of that question set.
I'm pretty confident, probably about a 7 or an 8.
Okay, so it's pretty high up there again. And what if anything would you choose to do? Would it be to cut?
Okay, now we're back at solutions and what are the action steps we're going to do. He didn't do the second part of that question. 7 or 8 is pretty high, but we're back at solutions. Again, the whole thing was muddy to me. Are we lowering the drinking so we can get the pills? Are we lowering the drinking because the drinking's risky? Are we looking for behavioral alternatives to drinking? What exactly what are we doing here? What's the focus? And does this other person agree that should be the focus?
Down, would it be to quit? I'm just curious about
Well, I like I said, I like a good glass of wine. I don't want to quit altogether. I'd be willing to try cutting back. But now if Dr. Seal would agree to prescribe me something for the anxiety, and it meant that I had to not drink at all, I'd be willing to do that at least for a period of time.
So you'd be willing to stop altogether if that's what was indicated by the physician. Okay.
So it's a good summary because he ignores the first part, which is I'd be willing to cut back, and goes for the high level, which is I'd be willing to quit completely if it means that I get the medication. But then again, what is the goal? Is the goal, yeah, I've said it too many times, but I would want to know what we're talking about, and I would want to know that this other person agrees that that's what we're talking about, so that would make me feel less like I'm inserting my own values on top of this person, and more like I'm being their servant to help them reach a goal they want. When it slides around like this and it's about quitting and it might be about these other things as well, that it just doesn't, that's not how I would want to do it.
Okay. So based on that, how ready are you to do anything?
So very good again. He did the important, confidence, and ready. ready, willing, and able. Those are important elements of motivation that you want to look at. And you want to shore each one of those up. If one of those is low, you want to increase it. Once all of those are pretty high, then we can start looking at solutions. And he started looking at solutions, at various points during the conversation, which to me just feels very haphazard.
Thing right now, whether it's to cut back, whether it's to quit.
Well, again, if I can get something to help me manage, if maybe I can find some other way to deal with the stress, then I'd be pretty ready. Again, maybe.
All right. So she's listed 2 goals. One goal might be that if I quit drinking, then I get a pill to help me manage the stress. I also might be interested in some behavioral things. So for me as a therapist, I'm going to go, okay, you can follow up with the doc about what his requirements are to be able to prescribe you something. But since I'm a talk therapist, would you be okay with using our time together today to talk about what some of those behavioral things that you could do that would also help manage your stress? And that might be really what she's interested in doing. She came in to her doctor for stress. The doctor identified the alcohol. And so again, I think it's unclear. Have I said that enough?
About on that scale, maybe an 8.
Okay, so that's pretty high up there as well. It sounds as though you're pretty motivated to do something about this right now, given your responsibilities, given your children relying on you at this point, and just on lowering your anxiety in general. It sounds that that's one of your goals as well.
Beautiful summary. Beautiful. Again, what's the goal? Those are reasons to do what?
Well, I'm pretty confident that once you decide to do whatever it is you decide to do, you'll be able to follow through with that.
Nice affirmation.
Based on your experience in the past of making behavior changes, I imagine there's some
Nice affirmation.
things that you can draw upon. What's one thing that you could do? I imagine you thought of some things.
I think this is now the 3rd or 4th time he's asked for an action step. And I think this could have been much easier if we had figured out what's the focus, and then we had looked at what, kind of resolve the ambivalence, and then looked at the action steps. She would have coughed up a lot more action steps.
Help to lower your stress.
Well, the exercise, but again, that's kind of difficult to fit in right now.
So again, you get I could do this, but I really can't.
Hoping that Dr. Seal will prescribe something for me to take when I'm feeling
I'm actually really hoping to get some drugs to manage my anxiety.
particularly overwhelmed, and maybe just having somebody to talk to bounce some things.
Okay, there's a novel action step that we haven't heard before. That's an interesting action step.
Off of.
One of the things we can offer here is for you to come in and talk to one of our behavioral health specialists. May be able to help you talk through this area of your life, this area of increased stress, and sound like responsibility there. And we can make an appointment for you if you like before you leave today to talk to somebody.
That'd be nice.
Great. It also has some.
So to me, I heard 3 different potential options there, and I might want to do a little bit of motivational interviewing around, so this option that you mentioned of talking to someone, how important, confident, and ready are you to move on something like that, and do a little bit of motivational interviewing around that particular action step. And then I think you'll see here that they didn't make the appointment. There weren't explicit what her next step is to make that happen. Like, on your way out, I'll go with you. We can make that appointment before we go. Would that be okay with you? But I would do some motivational interviewing around the action step itself. Is this really what you want to do? What's your ambivalence about it? Not necessarily asking what's your ambivalence around it, because I'm going to get the sustained talk, but I would want to make sure that we had really established that this was something she really wanted to do, increased her motivation around it, reflected back to her all the reasons why she thought that this would be a reasonable next step, and none of that stuff happened. And I think part of it is because we were trying to get action steps forever, and now we're at the end of the session and we've got 2 seconds, and so we don't have time to really do motivational interviewing around the plan itself, right? The action
Some
step.
information here, if you're interested, a pamphlet on alcohol and how what healthy limits are and how it may be affected by medications that you take as well.
So that would have been a really great thing to go over with her when she expressed the surprise about how much she was drinking. I'm imagining within that pamphlet there's information about what those risks are, and that would have been a good service to her. She is surprised that her drinking falls into a risky category. Let me, as a servant, share with you what those risks are so that you have that information, because you seem surprised, and I want to make sure that you have everything you need to make good decisions.
Okay.
And I wish you lots of luck. It sounds as though you're really committed to making this shift and this change.
Which shift and change? Is it that she's going to quit drinking, or is it that she's going to use this behavioral alternative to drinking? And she said she didn't have time to exercise, but she will have time to go to the appointment to talk to somebody. I don't know. Again, I've said it way too many times. I'm not sure what the focus was and what the goal was, and if she really truly did consent to any particular course of that conversation. And then it feels a bit rushed at the end in terms of, okay, you're going to talk to someone. That there could have been that could have been established earlier on, and we could have spent 2 or 3 minutes really firming up the likelihood that she's going to follow through on that action step. Again, I'm super critical. You may dislike the fact that I'm super critical. You may really like this guy's style. That is all through the comment section on this video. People love it. People really appreciate what he's done. He is not horrible by any means. I'm looking for every little thing that I would do differently. And as you watch videos go up on this channel and my other channel, you will see I am just as harsh on myself, just as critical. And the purpose of that isn't just to be harsh and critical. I don't get any particular satisfaction out of that. I just want to get better. And so I look at other people's stuff with a critical eye, looking for really what I'm doing is preaching to myself then that these are mistakes I don't want to make in the future. And when I review my own stuff, you'll see I make plenty of mistakes, and I'm very clear and not unapologetic about them, but I'm very frank about my own areas of growth in terms of motivational interviewing as well. So anyway, I hope that this sparks some thought in you, and that it will improve your ability to do MI, and that my spiritual gift of criticism will will result in you being a better servant to someone else and being able to help them more effectively.